Live edition of Locked On Warriors. We got the voice of the Santa Cruz Warriors, also the Golden State Valkyries, Kevin Danna on the show. So, of course, we're talking some WNBA in the Bay Area through their first 12 games in their inaugural season. And Steve Kerr's son, Nick, has joined the team. We're going to discuss this and what he brings to the table coming up on Locked On Warriors.
You are Locked On Warriors, your daily Golden State Warriors podcast.
What are they going to say now?
Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's good, everyone? Thanks for hanging out with us on a Friday or whenever you're listening to this show. It's always free and available on YouTube and wherever you get your audio podcasts. Easy way to support us is to hit that thumbs up. It's free. Also hit that subscribe. It's free. We very much appreciate it, and it delivers Golden State Warriors your content your way, left and right, Monday through Friday. My name's Charlie Walter, formerly at 95.7 The Game. That's in the Bay Area. It's the flagship radio station of the Warriors. Also cover the team for CBS News Bay Area in San Francisco. Today's episode is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. On the show today, friend of the program, it's been a minute since he's graced us with his presence. It is Kevin Danna. You can hear him on the call for the Golden State Valkyries in their inaugural season. You can hear him on the call for the Santa Cruz Warriors. And from time to time, you can hear him on the Golden State Warriors call. We'll talk some Valkyries. We'll talk some Warriors. We will talk some Nick Kerr. Let's start with Steve Kerr's son, who has joined the fold. Nick, 32 years old, played his basketball at California and also San Diego, was a Torrey Pines high school graduate, has spent the last 2 seasons with the Santa Cruz Warriors, where he's done well, taking the team to the playoffs. He's known for developing young talent, fostering a good team environment, and really being somewhat of a player's coach that fits in line with what the Warriors kind of want, and that is their culture continuing from this generation on to the next. Kevin, what does Nick bring to the fold in terms of what you've seen down in Santa Cruz, where he's a young up-and-coming coach, it seems?
Yeah, no, he did a really good job with the Santa Cruz Warriors these last couple of years, and he was an assistant for that a couple of years with Santa Cruz before that. Thanks for having me on the show, Chuck. I do want to thanks for that. But yeah, he brings a mixture. He's a lot like his father in the sense that he's calm, cool, and collected a lot. And then there are times where something happens where, look, he will get on the officials. He will get on his players. He can light a fire underneath guys for sure. I mean, it's a very transient league, the G League, and you're dealing with different starting lineups more often than not. Of course, the Golden State Warriors know a little something about trying out different starting lineups out there. Last year had a bunch of different starting fives. And he did a great job of always kind of keeping the group connected. This year in particular, thought they did a great job of fostering a really good team culture. Guys were all on board, and guys were getting called up. I mean, tons of call-ups the last couple of years, helping the development, helping the rehab of some players. Like the Santa Cruz Warriors were, going back to his first year as a head coach, were basically rehabbing Javonte Green and got him right to get another NBA contract, to the point where he became a buyout guy this year for the Cleveland Cavaliers. They got him on the buyout market. So he was really able to kind of rehab himself from a health standpoint and his like NBA contract status. So, I mean, that's just the tip of the iceberg. The guys that have come through Santa Cruz through the NBA, the development of Quentin Post this year in particular, Jackson Rowe, a guy who's been in the program a couple of years. I mean, he's done a lot of good with players individually. And look, this is kind of what the Santa Cruz Warriors have done. The last 4 head coaches, including Nick Kerr, 2 years as the head coach of the Santa Cruz Warriors, promotion to the Golden State staff. We saw it with Aaron Miles. We saw it with Chris Williams. We saw it with Seth Cooper. Now we're seeing it with Nick Kerr. Now Lane Wilson's going to be the new man in charge in Surf City.
Yep, and he was with the Warriors video team beforehand, so best of luck with him down in Santa Cruz. You'll be calling a lot of his games. Guy Santos, another name of a player that
of course
he helped develop and work up to the big squad. So You mentioned the fiery aspect. You mentioned just kind of the approach that he has towards the game, the love that he has. He's obviously tied to the Bay Area, not only his father, but over in Berkeley for the Cal Golden Bears.
Yep.
Let me ask you this, though. He's 32. It's extremely young, but you see guys like JJ Redick still in their 30s. They're getting coaching jobs. Joe Mazzulla. I mean, he was playing at West Virginia when I was just a few years younger than he was, I feel like.
Yeah.
So it's getting younger and younger. We're getting old, right? We're getting to the point where I'm as old as Nicholas Kerr. You know, he's my age. We're 32. It's crazy to think about. But at the same time, he's got good pedigree. He's been around the game for a long time. Is he someone that you think could be close to a head coaching job? Because I just look at the contract situation of where his dad sits in his last year right now, but probably going to get extended if he has a good season and wants to still do this thing. We'll see. But realistically, like, what's kind of the what do you see in his future if you were someone with a crystal ball? Is he head coach material kind of guy?
I mean, I could easily see him be a head coach in the NBA. I don't know how close he is to that. Usually, I mean, Mark Daigneault aside, he went from being an assistant 1 year with the Oklahoma City Thunder after being a head coach for their G League team for 5 years. Usually it's not 1 year as an assistant in the NBA after promotion from the G League to an NBA head coaching gig. And you mentioned young coaches. Daigneault, I think, was like 35 or 36 when he got the Thunder head coaching job. He's just a couple years older than me. I'm 38. I think he's 40. So, like, yeah, it would not surprise me at all if he's a head coach in the future. I don't know how long that would take, but, I mean, if you're going to the playoffs back-to-back years in a league where 39% of the teams make the playoffs. I was doing the math in my head, 12 out of 31, because there's been 31 teams. 31 teams each of the last couple of years, somewhere around there. If you're making the playoffs both years, when fewer than 40% of the teams make the playoffs, when you have that kind of roster turnover, you got to be doing something right. So Nicholas Kerr was clearly doing something right with the Santa Cruz Warriors, and it doesn't mean that G League winning success means you're going to be a great NBA head coach. But Mark Daigneault won a lot with the Oklahoma City Blue, didn't win a title, but took them to the playoffs. I believe 4 out of the 5 years he was there, or 3 out of 5, and that was when there were 8 or 12 teams. It depended on the season. Sometimes it was only 8 teams making the playoffs when he was in the G League. Like, it's not a direct translation, but hey, if you win at one level, then maybe you can win at the next level. So I thought he did a great job, and I would not be surprised if he's a head coach. I don't think, like, if Steve Kerr were to retire after next year, that Nicholas Kerr would be the replacement in 2026. Like, that's not the trajectory I see, but I think at some point, for sure, he could be in the NBA. Because, again, he would only be 33 after this year. Like, these more of the younger head coaches are now in their mid to late 30s as opposed to their early 30s. But, I could be wrong.
You mentioned a lot of the similarities that they have. A difference just from looking at the two side by side is obviously Steve Kerr and Nicholas Kerr in terms of hair color and certain things. They don't necessarily look alike, but in terms of their styles of coaching, some of the differences that are not getting too into the weeds with, offensive philosophy or whatever. But we know that Steve Kerr is someone that doesn't like the ball sticking. He likes movement. He likes connectivity. He likes finding the open man and making good passes and really unlocking an offense and really putting a defense on their heels by doing that. Is it just like father, like son, or is it completely different in that regard?
Well, certainly the ball moves in Santa Cruz. Year after year, Santa Cruz seems to be in the top 5 in assists per game, and they had the top assist guy in the G League this last year, and Yuri Collins, who did have a cup of coffee with the Golden State Warriors on a 10-day contract, got a bucket, played in 2 games with the Golden State Warriors. He averaged around 11 assists per game in the regular season in the G League. And so this is a team that was, I think, somewhere around 27, 28 assists per game. The defense wasn't always there with Santa Cruz this year, but once they traded for Braxton, or they didn't trade for Braxton Key, they called Braxton Key up on a 2-way contract, and you saw him a little bit in the playoffs there with Golden State, especially the one game against the Houston Rockets where they pulled the starters pretty early. He's a guy that really did turn the defense around the last 3 weeks of the season or so. And so they started to get some defensive connectivity. I believe they had a top 3 or maybe top 1 defensive rating after they got Braxton Key, and they were like bottom 3 in the NBA G League in defensive rating before that. So specifically on the offensive side of the ball, there's a lot of correlation between the ball movement in Golden State and the ball movement down in Surf City.
Yeah, and just to tie a ribbon on Braxton Key's game and the playoffs that he had, like, he was all over the place in terms of defensively and grabbing rebounds and stuff. His issue is he's a Virginia guy, right? And struggled to put the ball in the basket in that game. I think he was like 0 of 7. But in terms of like hustle and defense and everything, I can see how he's someone that really came in and lit a fire under that side of the ball right away. Let's talk about the Golden State Warriors. No more Santa Cruz. On to the big club coming up. What Danna wants to see this season. What are kind of his expectations as we enter this offseason? And free agency gets ready to pick up here soon. NBA draft is about 5 days away if you're listening on Friday to this podcast. So we're going to get into that. And of course, some Golden State Valkyries with the voice himself. That's coming up on Locked On Warriors. Today's episode is brought to you by OLIPOP. It's a new kind of soda made for people who just love the classic taste of soda but want something that supports their health. There's just 2 to 5 grams of sugar and 9 grams of prebiotic fiber in every can. That's why OLIPOP is reimagining soda in a way that's better for your gut. Traditional sodas have tons of sugar, 39 grams, and a Coke 44 and an orange Fanta. Are we talking cans here? Because I see like 70 in a bottle. Meanwhile, this OLIPOP actually does something good for you, and it's good, and they have tons of variety. You can go as crazy as banana flavored soda. I like it a little more simple: root beer, cream soda, cherry cola, but the grape's great too. It reminds me of the old Welch's back in the day. That stuff's phenomenal, and it only has a few grams of sugar. So swap out a soda for an OLIPOP and get a free can buying 2 cans or buying any 2 cans in a store, whichever flavors, and they'll reimburse you for one of those cans. All you got to do is head to drinkolipop.com/lockedonnba. You'll claim that free can. You'll find an OLIPOP near you. They'll send you an email or text message. It's one of the two, and you'll get that free can reimbursed. Drinkolipop.com/lockedonnba. Drinkolipop.com/lockedonnba. All right, KD, don't look so excited. It's the offseason, man. It's the best time of the year. The last few weeks have not been great for any podcasters, content creators, whatever, in terms of talking about the Warriors. Honestly, a lot of the content has come through the new team, the Golden State Valkyries, and seeing players like Kuminga and Pajemski and Steve Kerr, the head coach, and Joe Lacob, and all these guys in attendance. That's really the only inside look into Warriors basketball that you get right now, because Steph was serious when he said, like, I'll see you. We'll see you in a bit. You know, we'll see you in Tahoe for me winning another title up there. And then Jimmy Butler, we haven't heard a peep from him. Draymond Green, he just, like 5 minutes before the show came out, he just let out a podcast talking about the Pacers and the Oklahoma City Thunder going into Game 7. And of course, we have the NBA playoffs to kind of discuss from a grand scheme of the NBA. But in terms of really this offseason kicking off, it doesn't happen until the day after the NBA season ends. So this weekend, we're going to be really starting to pick it up. And then the 25th is the 2025 NBA draft. The question that I have for you is, flexibility is not really the name of the Warriors game right now. Like, there's not a ton surface level that they can do in terms of big splashy moves, unless they were to involve one of their 3 players that we believe is going to be the core of this upcoming season: Curry, Draymond, Butler, to a deal, to free cap, or to, trade out 1 for 2 or whatever it may be. Mm-hmm. Do you see this Warriors team looking much different than it did a year ago? Or do you think they were very good to end the season? We never got closure on what the team could have been because of the Curry hamstring issue, and they're going to run this thing back pretty similarly. That's a hard word to say every single time.
Yeah.
And they're going to run it back pretty close to what it was a year ago and really worry about it as they go. Or how do you see this going?
Yeah, I mean, I would lean towards the latter, right? I would lean towards, there's going to be some changes on the margins. Obviously, you never bring back the exact same roster you had the year before, but I mean, you've got those core 3 locked in. And you imagine with the way Jimmy's contract for the next 2 years, that like that's your window with this group through 2027, and you're just kind of going all in with this core you have. And look, it looked really good for the last 2 months of the regular season, and they got up 1-0 on the Minnesota Timberwolves before Steph Curry couldn't play. And maybe Jimmy Butler isn't at the level, like I don't think was 100% either. Like he got banged up in that Houston series, and that probably limited what he was able to do against the Minnesota Timberwolves. But like I don't think it was 100%. Stephen Curry, clearly, I mean, obviously he didn't play the last 4.7 games of that series. And so you're going to need all three of those to be healthy in the playoffs. Look, this is your window. I think this group is worthy of trying to run it back and see if you can get Steph and Draymond and Steve Kerr that 5th championship and Kevon Looney that 4th championship. And we'll see what the pieces around it look like. Obviously, ownership loves Jonathan Kuminga. That's the biggest story of the offseason with the Golden State Warriors. It'd be great to have him back, I think. He showed what he can do in those games when Steph Curry was not available against the Minnesota Timberwolves. So, I mean, every offseason's interesting. I don't expect there to be a ton of movement, but I mean, I also didn't expect Luka Doncic to be traded to the Los Angeles Lakers. So we'll see.
I don't think we expected Jimmy Butler to be traded to the Warriors. I mean, 2 days before it happened, all reports were that he didn't want to sign any sort of extension, right? Like life comes at you fast in this league. One thing that we do know is that the Warriors have really not gone away, minus Klay Thompson, from a lot of these champions. You know, it was Iguodala who retired in order to not be a part of it. And it was, Klay running out of any sort of a deal to where they had to make a decision. But in terms of like Draymond and Steph and Steve Kerr and Kevon Looney, there has not really been a separation of pulling the plug at all. A lot of these players that have played for the Warriors during this tenure finished their careers as older players at the Warriors and then ride off into the sunset. Kevon Looney being one of those guys. Gary Payton, who's really resurrected his career here. Really the only good NBA minutes that he's given have been in a Warriors uniform, with last year being pretty solid season of healthy basketball for him, which was not the case when he signed that bigger deal in Portland. Two players that are unique to the Warriors and probably won't have huge markets. Like, what do you think in terms of the Warriors? Like, what is the number that you would see where they would basically say, like, are these vet minimum players? And if they're not, they have to really think about how it financially constrains them, or are they just anything that they make that's less than a season ago? Let's bring them back because they provide immense value to this team.
Yeah, I mean, I think they're culture guys. They're locker room guys. They know what it's all about there with the Golden State Warriors. I don't like they're still serviceable NBA players. Like beyond that, like you mentioned Gary being relatively healthy. Kevon Looney, maybe he's not at the his 22 playoff self, but he's still not 30 years old yet. Like he's still young-ish from an NBA standpoint. He's 29. Like sometimes you look at him like people think he's older than he actually is because he's been on the same team, for 10 seasons now, and he's had a lot of injury troubles. But then after those early injury troubles, he's been relatively healthy. I think those guys are Warriors through and through. I'd love to see them come back on. If they're making similar money to what they made in their previous contract, I think those are no-brainers to bring back for sure.
Awesome. Let's get into the ladies, the Golden State Valkyries in their inaugural season. We'll talk about them and just the electric crowds that have been showing up to Chase Center. That's all ahead on Locked On Warriors with the voice of the Valkyries, Kevin Danna. All right, today's episode is brought to you by Gametime. There's nothing like the NBA playoffs. Unfortunately, the NBA playoffs are just about done. We have Game 7 of Pacers and Thunder, and by the time you're listening to this podcast, it may be the Pacers hoisting the trophy. That's my official prediction. I'm going on a whim here. I said Pacers in 6. Ooh, we're going Pacers in 7. If you want killer last-minute deals, panoramic seat views, and no-surprise fees, Gametime is a total game changer. They got 10% off exclusive zone deals right now for FIFA Club World Cup matchups. The NFL schedule just released, and Gametime makes scoring NFL tickets just as easy. And there's Gametime guarantee. Your tickets are 100% authentic and will arrive on time. And also, you get the best price no matter what, or you're credited 110% of the difference if you find better seats or better prices in the same row and same section. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets at Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off. Download the Gametime app today. Last minute tickets, lowest prices guaranteed. On to the Golden State Valkyries, man. Kayla Thornton, who's been great, the 32-year-old out of UTEP, in her 9th season. She's averaging 14, close to 15 a game, 7 rebounds. Some vets on this team. Monique Billings, who's 29 at this point. Shout out Mo. We worked on that bracket breakdown show together with Kylan and with Gordon Hayward and all them for the NCAA tournament. She was great and is doing well in the Bay Area, averaging 8 and 5. And then we got Kate Martin on the team, who has had some moments this season, a young player out of Iowa, but more so than just the play on the floor. Because it's been good. They're 6-6. They've been very good in their last 5 games, winning 4 out of their last 5. Some thrillers in there, an overtime win over LA, a win recently over Indy. The atmospheres. That's what I want to know about, man, because I have not been to any of the games yet, but it looks like Chase Center is providing one of the all-time great atmospheres in the WNBA. It's looked awesome, man. And the colors, the violet, man, like it's pretty nice.
Yeah, I mean, the violet floor really pops inside Chase Center. I think it's an incredible court. I like the court personally more than the Warriors court when they put it out there. I just like the color scheme.
Which Warriors court? I mean,
touche. Yeah, but I'll take the Violet Valkyries court over any of those personally. But that's just me. But yeah, I mean, last night, if you're watching this on Friday or listening to this on Friday, last night was the Fever game against Caitlin Clark in Indiana. I felt myself talking louder. I felt my insides like crunching up to get more power into my voice just so I could hear myself because it was that loud at Chase Center. Like, it was a crazy atmosphere, and the atmosphere has been awesome the first 5 games. Game 6, it went up a notch. These fans were on one and then some last night. So it has been just incredible doing games at Chase Center for the Valkyries.
Is Brandon Bajemski at this point, is Pods one of the biggest fans of the team? Because it seems like every time I'm watching videos, there's Pods with the slick hair and chilling in his Valkyries jersey. Like he seems like he's been at all of them.
Yeah, I mean he was rocking the Kate Martin jersey. He said, like, he was talking to the press after the game. He said he was giving Caitlin Clark some crap after a travel. Like, he was making when Clark traveled, he was making like the traveling motion in her face. He was talking. I mean, he's kind of like the unofficial mascot of the Golden State Valkyries, if you will. I mean, he's leading cheers. He's getting people to he's waving and telling the fans to get up on out of their seats. Like, he's been awesome to have courtside. Yeah, I mean, he is. I guess you could say. I wouldn't say the number one fan. I'm sure there's a lot of people who think they're the number one fan of the Valkyries, but he's right up there.
Do you notice a different vibe or atmosphere around the team, or does it really feel like an extension of just Warriors basketball? You see games on the men's side and on the ladies' side now with the Valkyries, and like, how do they compare? How do they contrast? Obviously, the play on the floor completely different from the women's and the men's game, the WNBA and the NBA. But in terms of like the atmosphere, I would have to imagine that just so many Warriors fans also are Valkyries fans at season tickets and that sort of thing.
Yeah, I mean, I forget the number, and I know team president Jess Smith will be disappointed in me for not knowing the exact percentage, but it's more than 80% of Valkyries season ticket holders are not Warriors season ticket holders. I think it's 85 to 95%. It's somewhere in there, and so like it's a completely different crowd for that and that alone. And so like, yeah, I mean, you'll just you'll see a ton of violet and black all over the place. You see some Warriors jerseys in the crowd, but it's mostly violet and black in there. And so I would say it is a different crowd. Just off that statistic alone, these are different fans that the Valkyries are reaching.
We'll come up, we'll check it out, man. And they have built it. Joe Lacob and the entire company has built this thing. And Chase Center now houses 2 teams in the Bay Area. Basketball in the Bay is here. We got your Stanford squad that used to call a lot of games for down there, and Maxime Reno getting ready for the draft. We're hoping that somehow, actually, for his sake, we're hoping that he doesn't fall to the Warriors at 41, right? Considering he's a potential first-round guy, but man, one can dream.
Hey, yeah, if Reyno's there at 41, sign me up. This guy just improved year after year. As a former Stanford basketball manager myself, yeah, I am a huge Reno fan. So yeah, I'll still be doing Stanford women's basketball games. I thought that was the team you were referring to on campus, but yeah, Reno is a hooper supreme.
Yeah, and we got Jalen Williams, a former Santa Clara guy from down in the South Bay that's potentially going to win a ring if they have their way and not me, because I said Pacers in 7 a minute ago. And Pods, again, ties, Bay Area, Nicholas Kerr from California. I mean, Bay Area represents, man.
Yeah, I will say I'm going to have to go against you on your prediction. I think the Thunder win by 12 to 15 points on Sunday.
Think the magic has ran out for Indy. They got a little too lucky with some of these fluky comebacks late in the season. And
I wouldn't say lucky. I just think the Thunder are historically good, and that they've taken a couple of game sevens because they're a young team. They win on Sunday. Watch out, because this will not be the last one. If they're able to keep this team together for the next 4 or 5 years, obviously some with salary cap issues, hard cap, this, that, and the other thing, they're not going to be able to bring everybody back. But if they can keep the majority of this core together, they're going to run roughshod over the NBA.
What about the Pacers, though? And I know that they had to have some things go their way and break right in the East in order to win the Eastern Conference, but that's an equally as young team, right? And everyone's like, we got this historic Thunder team, and here the Pacers are taking them to 7, blasting them in Game 6, and they're in a very similar position, and everyone's pointing at the team that hasn't even won the series yet as the next dynasty, and not Indy. They don't stand a chance in doing this thing again next year. And they made it far last year, right? They made it the Eastern Conference a season ago. So this is real at a certain point.
Oh yeah, I mean, the Pacers are going to be in the mix for sure in the East for years to come. I just think that the difference between them and the teams around them isn't that high. And I'm not saying that it was lucky that they defeated the Knicks the way they did, the Cavs the way they did. But I could easily, if they played that series again, I could easily see the Knicks beating them or the Cavs beating them. And I could easily see the Pacers. I think those are more toss-up series. So I wouldn't be surprised if they lost in the second round. I wouldn't be surprised if they made it back to the NBA Finals next year. I think their variance is a little wider than the Thunder's.
Yeah, I mean, half of me wants to say this series should be over because I thought they had Game 4 to go up 3-1.
Yeah,
but I think everyone thinks the Thunder should have had Game 1 to go up 1-0. So you can't really use that property if you don't look at it from both sides. So
hey, first Game 7 in 9 years, man. Can't wait.
For sure, man. Thanks for popping on. It's the off season. It's slow, and the big news right now is a 32-year-old assistant coach that's head coach of one of the most successful head coaches in NBA history, and people are screaming nepotism. He hasn't put in the work or anything like that. And you're here to say that, hey, dude, he was down in Santa Cruz and did his job and deserves an opportunity to show what he can do with the big fellas. So appreciate you coming on and spreading some light on that.
Yeah, 100%, man. Thanks for having me on, Chuck.
Good stuff. Enjoy the summer, man. Kevin Danna. We'll talk soon. This is Locked On Warriors.